Okay, so here we are. Hey, everybody. I am here with Dee McGraw, and give me a second. I'm figuring out how to share this to my page. Boom, there you go. I did it. I shared it to my page, and then I'm going to see if I can tag Dee. Let's see if I can tag Dee. Or maybe not. I don't know. Okay, well. Okay. Hi, Dee.
Hey,
How are
Tim.
you? Welcome to I Love Being Sober. My name's Tim Westbrook. I'm your host. I love being sober. I love my life today, and so grateful to be here with Dee McGraw of C4. Dee McGraw is the executive vice president of education and event services for C4. She has over 28 years of experience in the substance abuse disorder and prevention field. C4 is a nonprofit. Dee's going to tell us a little bit more about C4. She's going to tell us a little bit more about the events run by C4. And we've got the West Coast Symposium that's coming up. Obviously, with this COVID-19 pandemic environment, things have changed and shifted significantly. So we're going to talk about that because it's so important for treatment professionals to stay connected and share best practices. And we all know that the opposite of human connection is addiction. And so without us being able to see each other in person, without in-person events, without events where we actually get to interact, it's been difficult. It's been really difficult. So we're going to talk about that and how things have changed, because you did the Cape Cod Symposium a while back, which was your first virtual experience, right?
It was.
And now we've got the West Coast Symposium, which I'm really excited about. I'm really excited to hear about the changes and the things that are going to be different during this event. And so Dee McGraw began her career in substance abuse as a therapist, and she's passionate about educational opportunities. She's passionate about networking. She's passionate about helping other people. So Dee, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
So tell me about C4. What is C4?
We've been around for, I think, 33 years now as a company. It was originally founded by our board chairman as a collective group to get together to talk about how substance abuse treatment services should be reimbursed, and it should be treated based on what science and research says is the most effective way to do it, rather than what you can get reimbursed for. Okay. It's a novel concept. We're still fighting the same fight 30 some odd years later, really trying to educate people on what is the latest research, what's the latest knowledge, evidence-based practice that we have for what works best for treatment, and trying to educate communities and clinicians and the treatment field and all the collaborators about what's the best way to do that.
Right. Okay, so we're as we mentioned, we've got we're in the middle of a pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to be different? So the West Coast Symposium is coming up. What are the dates of the West Coast Symposium?
Well, there's the exhibit hall and some of the networking stuff is going to open November the 2nd. The actual 2 days for the live broadcast are going to be December the 3rd and the 4th. And then it will be open for 45 days after that, as all the learning will be on demand. So if folks can't make those two days, they can watch whatever we have as a recording on demand.
Okay, and then how many sessions are you going to have? How many speakers are you going to have?
I think we have 50, and I think there's the ability for, I wrote it down somewhere, I think we are at 64 continuing education credits. That's one of the things that C4 That's our main mission, is to provide the continuing education credits for a whole broad range of behavioral health professionals, from doctors and nurses and therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists to EAP, licensed marriage and family therapists, all of that group. So we have all of that available. So 64 is the most that you can get if you watched everything. That's a binge watch, although I'm not sure we've had a binge watcher yet for what we do.
Right. What are you most excited about for this upcoming conference, the West Coast Symposium?
You know, I've been doing this, I think, 18 years now, just with the events kind of stuff. And this is my tribe. This is my family on the road. So even though I don't get to see some people in person, I can video chat with some of them, and I can still try and network with that group. So I'm really excited to try and connect with some folks in that venue as we're all together kind of learning and doing those kind of things. So we've tried to really recreate as much of the connectivity and the networking as possible with the new platform. And again, as much as you can virtually do. But that's what I'm excited about, being able to connect with some of my friends.
What is, I guess, what are you doing differently during the West Coast Symposium versus the Cape Cod Symposium that is going to promote more connection?
We spent about a month and a half looking at different platforms and really kind of custom designing the system to maximize as much interaction. One of the things that one of the big conferences like the West Coast or Cape Cod, we have over 1,000 people there and usually over 100 exhibitors. So sometimes, your friend group's going to be there, and you can connect with them in advance to say, hey, meet us up for some tacos, or we're going to sit by the fire this night, or do whatever you're going to do. But sometimes it's harder to meet new people. And I will say the one thing about the virtual platform that's enabled us to do is we have a searchable database of all the attendees. So as long as we have permission to do so, and we've made it searchable by category and by interest group. So if you happen to have a number of interests, you can sort of select that as you're putting your profile in, and people can search all the people that might be interested in something and then reach out to them, because the platform has the ability to chat and to email with all the attendees. So you can say, hey, I see you're here from a neighboring town. I'd love to talk to you about what we do. I'd like to connect with you about what's going on. Tell me about what you do, or I see you run a sober living. Tell me about how you're doing. I'm having trouble with this kind of thing. Or I see you're in this area and had trouble with the NIMBY stuff. So talk to me about what that looks like. So there's the ability to interact on a different level. And again, it's not in person, but you're able to find sometimes your tribe a little easier this way.
Right. Are you, I know for all of us, connecting virtually is different, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm getting a little bit better at connecting virtually with people. And what about you? What's your feeling on connecting with people virtually? Is it getting better? Are we just changing because we have to?
I am not sure. I am not necessarily by nature a huge fan of change. So, but having said that, I am someone who, if I am forced to change, I love a challenge. So it's a mindset kind of piece to say that I don't know what the future is going to hold. But as an employee, as in my job, it makes me much more efficient at what I do. So I'm looking at it like I would look like at any skill that I'm trying to develop to do. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to add this to the things that I'm going to try and have some mastery of. So having said that, I can tell you with Cape Cod, we had a number of people that we worked, as I said, we worked really hard on the platform. The program, I think, was phenomenal. West Coast is going to be phenomenal. What we did not anticipate was really the amount of education that we needed to do to all of our attendee base and our exhibitor base as well. So we spent a lot of time, and some of our groups are a little bit older. Like, what is Zoom?
Right.
How do I get Zoom? And we are not Zoom people. We don't necessarily know how to teach people how to use Zoom, but we learn fast. And so we walk people through, how do you set it up? What does it mean? And what does this button mean? And what do I do with these kinds of things? So it's been a good lesson for all of us. And there's nothing like motivating change with having to do that to get something that you want. So we found a lot of people who were like, this is not my choice, but we'll join you because you don't have a choice. So that's been good.
Right. In light of the pandemic, what are some of the sessions that you think are going to be most important? Just off the top of your head, I know that you have a couple of, you have a lot of really amazing presenters. Name a couple of them that you're really just excited about in light of the pandemic.
I did not do my research on this. I will tell you that we just finished with Cape Cod. We have some that are transferring that have a little bit at both. And a new group, I think there's 50 some odd, I think, that are around for West Coast. And then I'm also in the middle of doing all of the call for presentations for next year's West Coast. So I'm gonna be embarrassed to say that I can't think of anyone's name right off the top of my head, but I know we have an absolutely outstanding lineup. We actually put it together at the beginning of this year. So it was ready to be launched in March for registration because West Coast was supposed to happen the end of May.
Right.
But I know that what you'd asked about some of the topics too that I think are going to be very good ones to talk about. A lot of the mental health, a lot of the self-care, a lot of the compassion fatigue. I know that a lot of folks are having difficulty managing from just the mindset of where we are with COVID, just as an individual, whether you're in recovery, not in recovery, a therapist, or a person with lived experience. There's a lot of tension that's happening just in the environment without even adding all the other stuff on. So I think anything that touches on a lot of the self-care piece, there was a lot about self-harm. Some questions about that, whether that's some suicide pieces, any of those kinds of things were very interesting because we're seeing a lot more discussion about that, or as we discuss the mental health of all of us and the use with the substance use disorders. Those are some key things I think that we not only work on our own, but be aware of what some of the added stressors that this environment might bring on.
Right. I saw that Judy Crane's going to be speaking. She's one of the headliners, right?
Most definitely. Judy's fabulous, especially with her trauma take. She's going to be doing a full day, and it's 4 separate workshops that combine to make an absolutely outstanding presentation. And her trauma pieces, I think, will hit on a lot of what's going on for a lot of people, even though they might consider it what we're having a major trauma. I think there's a lot of trauma response that we're having to just what's going on in the environment. And with the elections, I'm not going to go there, but I'm just saying overall, a lot of people are being traumatized and triggered by a lot of what's happening. And a lot of the workshops, I think, will address key points to some of those overall characteristics.
So Judy Crane, you said her workshop's going to be all day?
It is. There are 4 separate workshops. They all come together to make a full day of around the same issue, addressing the 4 different components of it. So, but people, again, they can look at some of them, and then they can go back and look at some of the different. They can, if they missed any of them, they can look at them in the 45 days post as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so for people out there that are going to be attending the workshop or the conference, what's your suggestion on how they can get the most benefit from the conference?
I think it kind of depends on some of what your ROI is. So I have a group of straight clinicians who are like, I don't do really any referrals. I don't do that kind of that much of those pieces. So some of them are more heavily clinical. So they're listening mainly to the workshops. I have some that are in a position where they're taking a client base who may not be appropriate for their group. So they might say, well, I don't really work with eating disorders, or I'm not really in a wilderness place, or I'm not those kind of things, in which case there's tremendous networking. So part of what we highly recommend is going into the exhibit hall and really looking at some of them. One of the things that we have, there's videos that, a welcome video that someone can tell you about their organization, documents. There's a lot of uploads. There's also some gamification that we've done to make it a little fun. So I think at Cape Cod, I think there was a $500 gift certificate to Amazon for the person with the most points who kind of visited and looked around and that kind of stuff. But I did have one of our attendees wrote a note to us and said, I don't really usually spend a lot of time in the exhibit hall. She said, but I did that because the prizes were fun and I thought I would do that. She said, I learned a lot. It was very interesting. She got back to her practice, which I think was North Carolina. And she said, one of her colleagues was talking about, I really need a referral place that does XYZ. And she said, I remembered one of the exhibitors that did that. I hooked them up and then they're talking about networking that way. So I think there's a lot of synergy around learning about what other people are offering, whether that's new therapeutic techniques or different places, because you might get someone that needs to be released from care into a different city or state. So you can search also the database by, you can search the exhibitor database by location as well, and by specialty. So if you're looking for someone that does wilderness or someone that does a 90-day program or 30 days or just IOP or transitional housing, any of those things, you can search by that, again, to make it more useful for you.
Right. So your recommendation for people that are networking purposes, meaning like business development, outreach, go to the exhibit hall.
Yes. Oh, most definitely. And I think even for your own practice, it helps. You can look for, if you're like, a lot of times people will be looking for a referral source and they're like, I'm not really sure who does X, Y, or Z. Then I think that's a good place where you can go to the drop down and you can search by someone that might provide that service and then go look at what they do. It's probably the closest you're ever going to get to a site visit, unless you're someone that does a lot of site visits. I know there are a lot of people that say, I won't refer to anybody unless I've done one. And I know that's really hard, especially now because we can't travel and sometimes they're not open for that. Yeah. But even before, it's hard if you're in Arizona to come to Michigan to do a site visit here. But sometimes you can look at the videos. You can get a good feel for what their program looks like, especially if they've uploaded some videos on, this is what our property looks like. These are our protocols. This is kind of what we do. Meet my team. So I think that those are all options to do within the exhibit hall, just to kind of get some more knowledge too.
So for a therapist, somebody that's just there to learn, what's your advice to them?
You can search through the agenda for keywords of things you might be interested in. If you're interested in trauma or you're interested in, we have some different topics around different mental health issues, concerns, different diagnostic pieces. So you can search for those kinds of things. I would look through the agenda and really peg what you can do in the 2 days, trying not to really stress yourself out by doing too much learning, in that, but you can do that. Make sure that you look to make sure if they've uploaded any documents, because we're asking our faculty if they have any supplemental stuff to upload that. Our faculty should also be searchable in the database. So if you wanted to reach out and ask a question of the faculty, you should be able to find them and ask them a question if you have that. There's also one other thing I forgot to say is there is under the networking tab in the exhibit and the on the homepage is are two things: the connect, which is where you search for your tribe, whatever you want to do, topics or things like that, and underneath that is discuss. And discuss works kind of like a Reddit board. So if you have questions that you would like to ask of the general attendee base, you can look for questions. You can ask your own questions, go back and do some responses to those kinds of things. People were looking for help. They're like, I always wanted to ask somebody, well, who do you recommend here? Or who should I talk to? Or what's the latest on this? Or what issues are you having around those things? So feel free to also make use of that discussion board, because I know that there's a tremendous amount of I don't want to say years of experience. I think the average number of years of experience for our clients are 15 to 20. So you gather, several hundred of those, more. I think we had over 1,000 at Cape Cod, in one place. That's a tremendous amount of learning power to ask a question of a group like that. So I'm asking people to check that discuss board and respond and ask questions and whatever, however they'd like to utilize that. So, but make sure to do that as part of the experience too. That will also be open. The conference is the 3rd and the 4th, and then starting the following Monday, that's a Thursday and Friday, is the 45 days, which everything will be on demand. And that discuss board and the connect will also be open, as well as the exhibit hall, that 45 days. So you don't have to cram everything into the 2. You can save some time and do that later if you want.
How can people sign up for the conference? It's
just under WCSAD.com. So it just stands for West Coast Symposium Addictive Disorders.
All right.
And there's want to exhibit, we've got some spaces there too.
So let me, okay, so here I have a good question. So I'm presenting during the sober living portion of the event, which I'm really excited to do. So for people like me, presenters, so this is for all the presenters, what can we do? What can I do to help contribute to this conference? What can I do to help, I guess, like, what are the things that I can do to help you, or to help promote the conference, or to make my profile more visible, or more informational? Like, what kind of information, what kind of supplemental information should I be adding? Because I want to make this experience as positive as and helpful and informational as possible. So what can I do to help you and to help the conference? And what can other faculty members like myself do to help you promote this conference to make it a positive experience for everybody?
Wonderful. Thank you, Tim, for asking that. And again, we say that, as much as I love people, nobody comes to see us, the C4 team, we love our folks, and you guys are the rock stars. They come to see you and to learn from you. So each of you has your own fan base. Each of you has your own group of people that know you and appreciate what you say and what you're doing and how you show up in the community. And letting those people know that you're a part of this event, I think is very helpful. Whether that's on your social media webpage, whether that's on a newsletter, or just what you're doing right now, I think is huge help to let people know that this thing exists. Especially as we're going virtual, people that might not have been able to travel, or the expense for all of that sometimes can be burdensome. So now that it's virtual, there's none of that. So we can reach people from areas that we don't normally have people. So that we find that social media is a great way to do that. So just letting people know that you're going to be there. And again, let people know what you're passionate about, what you're going to be talking about. Just saying, in my community, we've had concerns about these things. We're going to be talking about that. I'd like you to come and be part of that conversation. So just being inclusive to inviting people to be a part of that, I think is huge. And again, they can do that on the discussion boards as well. It's not limited just to the workshop itself. So as faculty, just kind of looking through the looking through the discuss board, see if there's anything you can respond to, and encouraging people to post questions there and really take advantage of the community that's there. I think that's a huge base.
What does the future look like? Like what does next year look like so far? I mean, I know that none of us know. Yeah. However, how far ahead are you planning? How far ahead is C4 planning?
Well, I mean, for the contract for the hotel, I mean, we had a total of 18-year contract when we started out, with this group. So in order for us to really get traction somewhere, we need a long-term kind of piece. So we negotiated that a long time ago. I would say that the facility, it's at the La Quinta Resort in La Quinta, California, right outside of Palm Springs, has been phenomenal. And again, virtual, we're not having one, but they've worked with us and phenomenal. The rates for the hotel, when we do have it next year, which we're planning on that, right. I think they were at about $165 a night, and it is a Waldorf Astoria property. And 2 weeks earlier, or a week earlier, actually, the hotel room are between $400 and $700 a night. So it's the same room.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've been to the conference several times. It's an amazing hotel, and I mean, what a great place for a conference. And man, I'm just so excited to get back there when it opens back up, right?
It's one of my most favorite places, and it's beautiful. And one of the philosophies I think around C4 is that I know a lot of people in this field, you know, don't come into this field for the company Mercedes or the trips that they went to Brazil or whatever they're going to have. You know, this is a lot of folks with a lot of heart. So we always try and find things that are affordable, even though the property is beautiful, and we want to make sure as much as we can that our folks are treated to something very special, and make it to be, rather than just coming for education, we want it to be an experience. We want you to feel nurtured both in spirit and mind and body and brain and all of that, and be surrounded by all that. That's kind of what our motto is. It's what we like to have. So we're trying for next year. What we have on the books is a hybrid model, so that we will be doing in live for both Cape Cod and West Coast, but we will also have a virtual component. Everything is up in the air as it is with everyone, but we looked at what social distancing can do for the facility. And we'll actually have a call with them tomorrow about looking at our floor map and our plans and how we can move people in and around, and what we can do safely for everybody that decides that they want to do an in-person piece. And then we'll have a virtual option for those who will either can't travel or travel is just not an option for them.
So one of the questions I skipped, or one of the things I skipped, was that you're doing what you're doing, and you're passionate about it.
Oh yeah. I mean,
so tell me why are you passionate about what you're doing and how you're helping people?
I think it stems back to I have always been drawn to this field. I had an undergraduate degree in psychology and couldn't figure out really how to make that work. And I moved home. I'm from Kentucky. I moved home after college, and a person had hired me to teach the DUI class for the state of Kentucky. She in her practice, she was going to be providing that. And I was blessed to be able to take a week-long class that really was about an educational component around just teaching people about themselves and about alcohol and drugs and all that kind of stuff. And I went back and I taught it for, I don't know, maybe a year. It was so transformational for people. Some of this knowledge, some of and again, a lot of this was more on the preventative side. I didn't have really too many people that needed treatment. There were a few, but there were some that were really close and that made life-changing decisions to alter the way that they were using, you know, based on learning things, based on the education piece, based on that. And it was really, you know, that was just a way that I could provide. I don't think so I went back for grad school and I applied for my master's in social work. And I said, this is what I want to do. This is the field I want to be in. And I was not a very good therapist, but I loved it and wanted to be. And it was divine intervention that for me to do the work that I did. I was in prevention for 4 years in 6 counties. And then I coordinated the substance abuse training for the state of Michigan for 4 years before I met these folks. And I've been doing this for about 18 years. So all total, I'm almost up to 30 years in the field. So it is, and I will tell you, I could not think of another field where you are literally daily inspired by people and their heart and their just how wonderful that they are. They're the things that people have overcome, and just how beautiful people are. There's a spirit and a genuineness to folks in recovery, and then those that serve them, that I think is unmatched in any other field. And it's beautiful.
That's a really, really good point. And I agree with you. It's like we're people that are in recovery, because most of us are in recovery, that work in addiction treatment, and we just want to help people. It's like we all want to be happy, joyous, and free. And helping other people along with their journey and helping them get to a place where they're clean and sober, and then they get married, and then they have kids, and they have jobs, and then they buy a house, and it's just such an amazing thing. So I agree with you. I mean, I just love the people in this field. There's so many amazing people, and everybody is, for the most, I mean, there are so many people that are just so genuine and authentic, and it's not about driving fancy cars and having a nice watch. And I mean, it's nice to have nice things, but that's not why we're in this business. We're in this business to help people.
Mm-hmm. It's humbling. It really is humbling to be among such really wonderful, wonderful people. And that's, I think that's what gets me through some of these crazy times, is just the connectivity with the people who have been through so much, and are still like, I am alive and this is amazing. And I'm blessed to be here. And I'm like, oh yeah, I need to stop my complaining. And
right.
Excited that I woke up this morning, be excited that, of where I am, which is great because I get to work with you guys.
Yeah. Last question. Tell me about your morning routine.
Well, what should be my morning routine, or what is my morning routine?
You can answer it however you want. I just know that's one of the questions I like to ask people, is tell me about your morning routine, because we all have a morning routine. Mm-hmm. And even if it's not a routine, it is a routine, right? Or we might have a routine that is or we want it to be different, or it's fantastic, or whatever, because the morning routine really sets down for the day.
Yes.
And so for me, that's been one of the most important things that I do, is I get my day started off on the right foot. I mean, like all the things that I do, I've got a specific routine, and it sets the stage for the day. And it's one of my favorite things. And so I want to hear what you do for your morning.
It is basically, I have decided, when we all went into this sort of hibernation COVID place, that I really would like to do some introspection. So I've added a little bit of meditation. Being still sometimes is hard for me. So that's a stretch. So I'm looking to do that. I was doing hot yoga when we had, a life to do that, which I found was amazing, absolutely amazing. So, but not doing that. So trying to get some exercise in at least 3 days a week, to keep some endorphins going. So trying to do that one. And then my pets by that time are demanding to be fed. So they take over everything with a lot of demands. And so they get fed, and then I make an absolutely delicious smoothie every single morning with tons of protein powders and all kinds of amino acids and bananas and chocolate, and that's my pretend.
What kind of protein powder?
There's a whey protein, and then there's a what's the name of it? It's I have to think of it. It's another. It's not a soy protein, but it's another mix that has a whole bunch more vitamins and minerals in it, and that's a chocolate protein powder, and some frozen bananas in there, and ice, and vitamin D, and then fiber, and then another collagen thing. So just dump the whole health thing in there, and then put it in one of these giant glasses. Where did it go? There you go. That's tea right now, but put it in one of those and sip on that all morning while I answer emails and plan the day.
There you go. Dee McGraw, everybody. Dee, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you. Really looking forward to the West Coast Symposium. Looking forward to seeing you in person as soon as possible. Do you want to tell people how they can reach you or find out more about C4? I know we've got WCSAD.com is how people find out more about the West Coast Symposium of Addictive Disorders. Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, my email is just DEE at C4, just the letter C, the number 4, recovery.org. So feel free to reach out, whatever you might need. Happy to do that. Like I said, the WCSAD.com has past brochures and everything. It's got the agenda for what's coming up. If you have any questions on that, happy to answer that. Tim's going to be our faculty, so we're excited about that. As with all of it, this is a true labor of love, and so hopefully you can come and love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Dee.
Thanks, Tim. Always appreciate it.